All
You may
right.
begin.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 4:02 p.m. here on Wednesday, January 15th, as we call this meeting of CDA's Selection Committee to order. My name is Noel Pfeffer. I lead the city's Community Development Administration. Jackie, could you please call the roll?
Sure. Committee Member Kian,
Present.
Committee Member Ingracia,
Present.
Committee Member Alexander,
Present.
and Committee Member Rhodes.
Present.
All right, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And I am also present. With that, we'll have
Chair Pfeffer, I apologize.
present. Um, with that, let's move on to the first item on our agenda, or the next item on our agenda, approval of the minutes. It has been some time since we last met on May 22nd, 2024. You can find a link to those minutes in the meeting agenda and open the floor for any discussion regarding any edits that may need to be made to those minutes to ensure accuracy. And if there are none, I'll also entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. With that, the motion has been made and properly seconded. Jackie, could you please call the roll?
Sure. Committee Member Kian,
Abstain.
Committee Member Ingracia,
Aye.
Committee Member Alexander,
Aye.
Committee Member Rhodes,
Aye.
and Chair Pfeffer.
Aye.
It is
With
approved.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to our main business today, which is reviewing and hopefully approving for issuance three draft requests for proposals, which our team is bringing before you today. We'll start with the ARPA closeout and compliance services. So just a little bit of background on this work. This contract and scope of this, request for proposals and scope of work was put together in partnership with the city's Emergency Management Administration, which leads a lot of the city's ARPA compliance, and in particular is responsible for reporting to Treasury. And this is designed to ensure that both the city's Emergency Management Administration and CDA have access to the support we need as we prepare to close out our ARPA grants and report them up to Treasury. And so things that we are requesting and are part of the scope of work is a consultant, for example, that has expertise in ARPA management and that is well-versed in federal rules and regulations, to come in and review our files and confirm that the applicant and grantee or beneficiary, subrecipient, or contractor, as the case may be, are in full compliance and have provided us all the documentation that we need for our file before we close it out as being in good standing. Similarly, to research rules and regulations to resolve issues as may arise as we review these files, to support CDA, but especially the city's Emergency Management Administration by seconding staff to support ARPA reporting. This is a need that hopefully we don't need, but that the city's Emergency Management Administration did want to prepare for in the case that reporting demands increase. It's a small team and they do amazing work, but they may need additional support and capacity. And finally, other support and consulting functions as CDA or SEMA may require, such as IT support or other compliance support. So that's a little bit of background on the need here, and I'll open it up to any discussion. Hearing none, all I'll add, because I think it would be a reasonable question, is you may reasonably ask how it is that we are going through a procurement process to contract with SLURF funds. when the obligation deadline passed and was in fact December 31st, 2024. The answer to this is that these funds have already been obligated for this specific purpose pursuant to an interagency agreement between SEMA and CDA that has been approved by ENA, signed by the Comptroller's Office, signed by the City Councilor's Office, and meets all of the ARPA and Treasury regulatory obligation requirements.
Thank you for that information. Thank you.
Of course. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been made and properly seconded. Jackie, if you could please call the roll. And let me actually add here just for the minutes that the motion is approving CDA to issue this RFP. And we'll, of course, be bringing the responses to the RFP back to the committee.
Previous roll.
Does that need a, do we have a second? Good. Okay.
No, sorry. Previous roll, I abstained.
Hmm.
I second.
We would
No,
call
but
it.
it sounds like
Wait, hold on.
I'm gonna go back and
Right,
because in the previous roll, Grace
The previous, she did.
suggest, yeah, I'll suggest that we make a motion and a second for a full roll call vote. Do we have a motion?
Well, I think the
You
motion.
don't need it. You don't need a motion for that. There was an objection to previous roll, so you can just call the roll.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm out of practice. We haven't met since May. Jackie, please call the roll.
Sure. Member Keung,
Aye.
Member Ingracia,
Aye.
Member Alexander,
Aye.
Member Rhodes,
Aye.
and Chair Pfeffer.
Aye.
Right, it has been approved unanimously.
Thank you. We will move forward with issuing this RFP. Our next item on our agenda is a request for proposals for watershed management, flood mitigation, and green infrastructure planning services. There's a lot of detail in this RFP that I'm not going to get into, although we can discuss it if needed. But what I'll talk about is at a high level how this fits into the city's CDBG disaster recovery work. The city was awarded $25.8 million in CDBG disaster recovery funds by Congress through HUD, and this is in response to the July 22 flooding. We have submitted our action plan, which sets forth investments into home repair, home buyout, and critically green infrastructure, because we know that our city seems to have a 100-year flood every 5 years or so lately, and we need to become a more resilient city. We actually have one of the fastest water tables in the country, meaning how quickly water moves through our city because of how impermeable so many of our surfaces are. And so this work, which has emerged from our disaster recovery planning in partnership with our wonderful consultants, ICF, who do this work across the country, in partnership with the planning department, which has raised the need and priority for green infrastructure and actually did the lion's share of the work devising this scope of work for this planning process. It's through all this engagement that we've arrived at the need to create a citywide watershed management, flood mitigation, and green infrastructure plan. I should note also that the county has also received CDBG DR funds, and we are hopeful that they will also contract and procure a similar plan, and then we'll be able to hold hands, because water obviously doesn't know or care about the city county boundaries, and we need to really make a shared regional plan in order for maximum effect. But that's a little bit of background here. There's a lot of detail in the scope about some of our priorities, and welcome any questions or comments. Yes, thank you. Opening the floor for discussion.
There's still 2 comments in the RFP. Noel, are those supposed to be resolved in there? I didn't, just for the approval purposes to know what's final.
They should be. I don't know if Colleen, you may be able to comment on this, but I'm seeing here that there's a question about naming and framing best-in-class projects. That it looks like the discussion in the comments is that we can delete this from PDA. And then there's a question about whether the city will be seeking to acquire property as part of this work. And the answer is that for the most part, we will be focusing on LRA property. But there is a buyout program associated with the CDBG disaster recovery plan to help homeowners who live in flood zones or high risk areas relocate. And that this work and any acquisitions done by the city in relation to this HUD funded work must go through the URA process, which is the Uniform Relocation Act, and also mandates certain processes for acquisition of properties, in particular requiring us to pay fair market value subject to an appraisal and negotiation. So Colleen, is there anything that you would add to that or any edits that are needed?
No. No, and I think that probably what happened is there were just multiple drafts that we were going back and forth on today, and the comments do not need to continue to be included in the final draft.
2 questions.
Yes.
How vital is it if St. Louis County does not approve along those borders with the city and the county? And number 2, on the buyouts, what if we run into taxpayers and or organizations that are unwilling to sell?
Yes, so the program is designed as a voluntary buyout program. To answer your second question first, we don't anticipate at this moment going beyond that, and folks have a right to live in their homes at their own risk. But in response to your previous question about the county, first of all, the county is still in their action planning process, right? So they have yet to submit their action plan to HUD. And in fact, I don't believe that they've released an action plan for public comment. But we don't know, to your point, whether or not they will prioritize planning. It is a best practice. And we've had conversations with county staff at the equivalent department to CDA, essentially aligning the work. So we are hopeful that we will be able to hold hands on this. We even considered actually doing a joint procurement. And unfortunately, the processes for doing so are pretty arcane and challenging. And we ultimately felt that it wasn't worth waiting. And that what we would rather do is begin the process and begin the city's plan, because in either case, even if the county doesn't move forward, we still need our city plan for resilience and managing the watershed. I mean, the way I often put it, and this is going to sound a little hokey, but is that the city has a pretty toxic and abusive relationship with the river and water. It's been really channelized and constrained and choked off in so many ways. And then every 20 years or 5 years recently, it overflows and it causes a lot of damage. And we really need to heal that relationship. And that's what this planning process is about. And so we hope and expect the county to join us in this work, but whether or not they do, we do need to move forward as part of our disaster recovery planning work.
Thank you.
If you need help reviewing responses on this one, let me know.
Sorry, what was that?
If you need help reviewing responses on this one, let me know.
Thank you very much. I know you have a deep expertise and familiarity with the river, so we'll definitely be sharing all the responses with all committee members and welcome your input. With that, if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to authorize us to issue this request for proposals.
So moved.
Do we have? Thank you. The motion's been made and properly seconded. Jackie, please.
Sorry, was that Christine that moved? I wasn't
Mhm.
looking. Okay. And Grace, did you second?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Member Kyung?
Aye.
Member Ingracia?
Aye.
Member Alexander?
Aye.
Member Rhodes?
Aye.
And Chair Pfeffer?
Aye. By your votes, you've authorized us to move forward and issue this RFP. Thank you very much. And then finally, we have a request for qualifications for green infrastructure design and construction management services. And I'll just say a few words about how this fits together with the planning work. And the reason why we are doing these simultaneously is that we actually, through our planning process, and in particular in partnership with the planning department, have already identified certain geographies, about 10, that we know were hit extremely hard by the July 2022 flooding. It includes, for example, the intersection at Ashland and Norwood, where we saw water up to the level of the stop sign, and where there was significant damage made to homes. And so through this planning process, we've already identified certain sites that we know are going to be priorities for green infrastructure. And so we need to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time and do this long-term visionary planning process while starting to implement green infrastructure solutions for residents that are being hit by these floods repeatedly. And so that's why we are here preparing to issue this request for qualifications for a architectural design firm to support us. And the process will work as follows. We've identified these sites. We'll send them to this firm that'll review these sites, assess them for green infrastructure potential, and then let us know which they recommend that we move forward with. We'll work with the planning department, take these recommendations under advisement, and then ultimately assign a site to this firm. And that's with specific parcels that we want them, with specific parcels and a budget of what we want them to design, and then ask them to design that green infrastructure solution for those parcels that meets our budget requirements and our water retention goals. And so they will design this green infrastructure for us and produce both construction-ready bid drawings, as well as renderings that we can take to the community and actually get input on before we bid the projects out for construction. Because that's really essential when we think about green infrastructure. We want it to also be an asset for the neighborhood and to engage with the community as before we bid anything out for construction, to make sure that there's buy-in on the front end. Then we will issue that request for bids and rely on the architectural design firm to help us review those responses and select a construction company. And then this architectural firm will also provide some construction oversight support to ensure that the selected contractor, whether they're a landscaper or another construction company, is implementing the green infrastructure with fidelity to the designs. And so that's the process that we've built, again, in partnership with ICF, our consultant, and the planning department and other stakeholders. And that the last thing I'll note here is that this is designed as a request for qualifications, because in accordance with the Federal Brooks Act, as well as federal guidance, when we procure architects or engineers, we don't want a price-based selection mechanism. We don't want the cheapest architect or engineer. We want a qualified architect or engineer. And so that's why this is structured as an RFQ. But that does not mean that there will be a subsequent RFP. The RFQ is going to be the full selection process. And based on this RFQ, we will enter into a contract with one or more firms to provide these architectural design and oversight services. I'll open the floor for any discussion or questions or comments.
The only thing that I wanted to note as it relates to CDBG DR is that our period of performance ends on September the 8th, 2030. So when you see the mention of the estimated schedule of June 2030, that's why.
Thank you, Rashonda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to authorize us to release this RFQ.
So moved.
I second.
The motion's been made and properly seconded. Jackie, could you please call the roll?
Sure. Member Keung,
I don't know about you, Jackie, but I didn't hear.
Sorry, aye.
Thank you.
Member Ingracia,
Aye.
Member Alexander,
Aye.
Member Rhodes,
Aye.
and Chair Pfeffer
Yes.
has been approved.
Thank you very much. We will, in that case, move forward with issuing these three requests for proposals and qualifications and move on to the next item on our agenda. And that is scheduling the next meeting. I think we should look at scheduling a meeting currently to review the responses to these RFPs. We may ask you to come back sooner than that if we have additional RFPs or RFQs to release. But for today, I think it makes sense to look at when these close, which I believe is February 17th for all three of them, and plan to meet a week or two after that once our team has had an opportunity to review. So I would suggest, and I welcome other preferences, but I would suggest perhaps the first week of March.
Noel, I'm sorry, this just hit me. Is February 17th a federal holiday? I don't know how that impacts CDA, if so.
Which federal holiday is it?
President's Day?
It's a city holiday also.
In that case, we should probably amend all of these to be due on the 18th. And we can do that. Do we need to go back and do that formally, or can we just take that under advisement and edit it accordingly? Jackie, I defer to your guidance.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
So the point was correctly made that we may want to make these due on the 18th as opposed to the 17th, which I think makes sense, and we will do. But do we need to go back and amend the authorization to issue the RFPs, or is these sort of minor typos and correcting them implicit in the committee's authorization?
I don't think that the minor typos are going to make a difference. I don't think that will require amending it. I think we can just edit it so that it is correct.
Wonderful. We'll do so, unless anyone on this committee has any objection. Scrivener's error, Christine, absolutely. Thank you. And again, I'll suggest that we schedule the next meeting for this committee for the first week of March to make selections for these procurements, but again, want to make you all aware that we may request that you come back sooner in order to issue additional procurements.
Understood.
I have a lot of flexibility that week.
Wonderful. We can also let Kevin work with you all to find the best time on everyone's calendar in March, but I will try and throw out a date of 4 p.m. on Monday, March 3rd.
I would have to be done no later than 5:30.
I think that should be all right. Does that time work for everyone?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Great. So we will provisionally schedule the next meeting of this body for 4 p.m. on Monday, March 3rd. And Kevin will coordinate with you all as needed for any other meetings. And that brings us to the final item on our agenda, adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
wonderful? Jackie?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. We appreciate you. Have a great rest of your day.
Indeed, everyone, enjoy.